He's doing two huge games in the Big 12 this weekend, a much criticized conference so far because of the lack of defense. They did not have Baylor in the top four. They did not have TCU in the top four. It was Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, and Alabama. How did that land for you?
Well, to say it lightly, I was disappointed in the entire sport. And once again, I feel like the adults have gotten in the room and let an agenda overtake what has happened on the field. It's pretty clear to me that this committee doesn't know what they're doing. And there's some real biases being played out, in particular with the schools that are being represented by certain athletic directors. You know, if you beat Wisconsin this year with Barry Alvarez in that room, well, you're liable to be ranked really high.
The SEC had 6 teams from the SEC were all ranked higher than those teams slotted in both the AP and USA Today coaches poll. What does that tell you?
Well, I think that clearly the strength of schedule matrix, as they like to call it, is favoring the SEC. I think that the perception of that conference leads people to think that it's the easiest possible position to put those teams where they're at. Colin, I got to tell you, the criteria is such a moving target. Ever since they started doing these ridiculous weekly rankings that everyone likes to say don't mean anything, but they absolutely do. They mean everything. The criteria has been a dartboard that's on a different position on the wall at all times. And this committee likes to play the darts blindfolded. They talk about game control last year 1 week. Then it's strength of schedule. Now all of a sudden it's a new equation, apparently concocted by everyone at the four-letter, called strength of record. They talk about common opponent or eye test. Now I'm hearing a term, circumstance around a loss. I feel bad for Jeff Long, I got to tell you, in some respects, because this thing has become so corporate and so political that they trot him out there for quote-unquote transparency, and it becomes a magic show. And when all else fails, he has to go to this line. Well, you have to look deeper than that, Colin. The criteria is a reference point, but it's hard to explain. You know what people say? You know what position they're in when they say it's hard to explain? That it's unexplainable. That's what's hard to explain.
What team in particular do you think got jobbed?
I think with where Alabama was slotted, Notre Dame and Florida and Baylor all have the biggest gripes within the first ranking. Alabama apparently is so strong because they have 3 wins over teams that are above 500. And yet their loss is to Ole Miss at home, who's a 2-loss team. Well, look at Notre Dame. They've also got 3 wins, with those teams being over 500. Navy 6-1, Temple 7-1, USC 5-3, clearly playing better since Steve Sarkisian was fired. Oh, and by the way, their loss was on the road at the number 1 team in the country by 2 points. Florida, they beat Ole Miss by 28 and lost at number 2 LSU. So you tell me what's the worst loss. You know, Alabama is the only team in the country, Colin, that it doesn't matter if they win or lose. They're going to be up there because of their brand, and everyone's afraid of Nick Saban.